Hello, my name is Olorotimi Osha. Today is Sunday, May the 10th, 2026, and I went to church today. I had a good time. Um, you know, I've explained before that a reason I like to do these videos that I've been doing is apart from the fact that, well, I've been wrongfully detained by Montgomery County, Maryland, based on false accusations, right? By an impersonator, Howard University professor Jide Iwarere, who made false accusations. And it's been 3 years. So I use the time to share knowledge from my education, right? My education, just to share, ways to dissect stuff, right? I share knowledge on history, a little bit of human rights, a little bit on law. And again, this is for educational purposes, not as legal advice. So, on the other hand, uh, education, right? Formal education, it may enhance one's analytical abilities, one's knowledge, but what it won't give you is wisdom. It won't give you that much. It won't give you wisdom. It wouldn't give you moral intelligence, right? It wouldn't help you to be a good person, right? It wouldn't help you to be able to make good value judgments, right? To be able um, to select what is good from what is wrong. And that's where religion comes in, right? And one of the something I found helped me in building moral intelligence, and that's faith, belief or religion. I'm a Christian. That's what I profess. Is studying the Bible. So the Bible gives us a lot of good practical wisdom, right? A lot of good practical wisdom, and this is something I want to share. And and again, um, we're in an era in which unfortunately, it's gone viral how American kids are not able to read. They the pipeline from classrooms to prison has been exacerbated. So there's a lot of decadence in our society, particularly pervasive amongst the youth. So hopefully, as I do these videos, at least it will touch one person. If it's just one person, I know my friend, I was doing these videos for my friend's son, so that he could get some kind of interest spark in studying American presidents, but just studying American presidents and understanding the law is not sufficient to build one's moral intelligence. And so that's why I go into the Bible, and you get a lot of, moral intelligence, wisdom. Many times you find many people, especially in the halls of academia, you find many people with all sorts of degrees, a professor. They could be a professor of medicine. They could be a professor of law. But you find many of them, uh, in their wisdom, they are like children, despite all the years of education, all the erudition, all the powers of analysis, analytical thinking. Their moral intelligence is at a baseline. It's closer to nil, right? It's just non-existent, and sometimes you find you wonder that why is it that people who are so highly educated or they're older, why is it that they seem to act, immature? Why do they act with, like they don't even have wisdom? That's often because many times the moral intelligence is not there. So the my elevator speech has gone beyond 2 minutes, right? So let me dive into the passages I wanted to discuss today. There are three passages I want to discuss today, and it has to do with reconciliation, right? Learning not to be combative, right? One aspect of Christianity is learning to reconcile, because of course Jesus Christ, his ministry was all about reconciliation, to reconcile humanity, right? Fallen humanity with God, right? With the Almighty God who created the whole world, and Jesus Christ through his sacrifice. and his life as well preached a ministry of reconciliation, and we'll see that in some of his words. So something I want to also do is to encourage us to read. So I'm going to get in and read, right, instead of just discussing. I'm going to actually read from the Bible, and today I'm going to be reading from the New King James version. So I'm a lawyer. Remember, I'm a lawyer, not an attorney. There's a difference. I'm going to do a video on that, just distinguishing what a lawyer is, what an attorney is. So I'm trained in the law. I have a law degree. I actually did an internship, worked in a law court, right, while I was a judicial intern, while I was in law school. I've done an internship also working for a boutique law firm. So, and I have my Doctor of Law degree, which in Latin is Juris Doctor, right? So from George Washington University Law School. And I did international human rights law at Oxford University. So I've studied some more in law. So something I'm going to do is um, show how for Christians, right, we are advised as Christians, right, not to be combative. So when Christians have an issue, because we have a church organization, a church community as Christians, and we see this started from the Bible, right? And we have church leaders, who are guided by wisdom and the Spirit of God, right? And they teach us that when we are in conflict with one another, right? Conflict is part of life. It's part of the community of human beings. Now, rather than going to the courts to resolve, conflict, we should actually we should go to uh, we should refrain from going to the courts, because the courts, they are normally run by unbelievers, and their methods are, the methods are unchristian, or not, they're not peaceful. By the way, when you go to court, it's an adversarial process, right? And even especially in the United States today, and the objective is to divide you guys and separate you, right? Separate you when you go to court, to divide the parties, right, and put you aside. In fact, if you've started a litigious process, if you filed a case in court, and you reach out to the other party outside of the court process, you can be sanctioned for it. You can get into trouble. It can be considered harassing the other party, right? It can be considered uh, uh, you know, intimidation, witness tampering, and things like that, right? So once you go to the courts, it's a different process. And so I'm going to get into the Bible text today, just to show how we are encouraged to reconcile. And if we have issues as Christians, believers um, are supposed to go to the church leadership, right, and use Christian methods, the methods preached in the Bible, to resolve our disputes. And once I read today, I'm going to be reading from the modern text, New King James version, and we can understand it. And I'll do a subsequent video and explain why I chose this issue of resolving matters, right? Of course, it applies to my personal situation, right? I was taken to court by somebody who was misrepresenting himself, saying he was my uncle, and he was also saying he's a Christian, he's a pastor or a church elder at a different church. But however, he chose to take me to court, right? And this has spiraled out of control, right? In the process, the police came, they used their deceptive methods, illegal methods. There was police misconduct. They shot me in the head, right? You can imagine somebody who's saying they're my family, taking me to court, and then having the police shoot me in the head. They almost killed me. The police used racial epithets, saying they wanted to kill me. They removed me naked from my home in handcuffs, humiliating me, dumping me in public, in a public hospital. My family didn't know. I was locked up in jail for months, 15 months, right? Locked up for 15 months, detained, placed under house arrest, right? So You can imagine the process. There's been a corrupt judge who's defamed me, abused me, dehumanized me. And I come from a respectable family. Even if I didn't come from a respectable family, as a human being, I deserve dignity, right? I'm somebody who holds myself in a dignified manner. But I was debased. I was dehumanized. They tried to humiliate me. But what helps me, right? To survive the abuses, the trauma, is because I'm a Christian, right? I'm a man of faith, and so I'm going to go into this and just we'll get a little bit of wisdom, a lot of wisdom from the horse's mouth. So this is Apostle Paul reading now. So my first reading is going to be from 1 Corinthians chapter 6. I'll read from verse 1 to 8. If any of you has a dispute with another, do you dare to take it before the ungodly for judgment instead of before the Lord's people? Or do you not know that the Lord's people will judge the world? And if you are to judge the world, are you not competent to judge trivial matters? Do you not know that we will judge angels? How much more the things of this life? Therefore, if you have disputes about such matters, do you ask for a ruling from those whose way of life is scorned in the church? I say this to shame you. Uh, is it possible that there is nobody among you wise enough to judge a dispute between believers, but instead one brother takes another to court, and this in front of unbelievers? The very fact that you have lawsuits among you means you have been completely defeated already. Why not rather be wronged? Why not rather be cheated? Instead, you yourselves cheat and do wrong, and you do this to your brothers and sisters, right? Or do you not know that wrongdoers will not inherit the kingdom of God, right? Do not be deceived. So that's that reading. And that was 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 8. Now, this I'm going to take from Matthew chapter 5. I'm going to read from verse 22. And this is Jesus Christ speaking, right? You find in the modern text, in a lot of text, right, the sayings of Jesus are in red in the New Testament. So, in the Gospels, right, the Gospels are Matthew, Mark, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, right? Those are the texts called the Gospels in the New Testament. So I'm going to read from Matthew chapter 5. I'll start from verse 22. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, is answerable to the court. And anyone who says, You fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. So you can see that's Christ saying, look, the legal system, it was back in his day, it was adversarial, right? It was adversarial. It was, you'd find that what could be a trivial matter soon exacerbates, right? It's really a case of making a mountain out of a molehill. You get more than you bargained for. And then I'm going to read from Luke 18, from verse 1 to 8. So this last portion is really about Christians learning to pray, not getting tired from praying, right? And being pertinacious, right? This is a story of the pertinacious woman, right? Who was she was imploring a judge to find a case in her favor, to decide a case in her favor. And but I'm reading this also to demonstrate the sort of unsavory characters that can be in courts. Even in Jesus Christ's time, there were unjust judges. So this is about an unjust judge. And till today, we still have judges who are unjust. They're trained in the law. Some of them know how to receive bribes, right? But it's very difficult to get them prosecuted, right? Because they're cunning enough to uh, get the bribes um, without leaving a trail of evidence, right? That can lead to their prosecution and conviction. But this last chapter I'm reading just to encourage one that even if one has been wrongfully accused like me, you should have hope in constantly praying, right? Learning to pray without ceasing. So this is a story of the pertinacious woman, the persistent widow. That's Luke chapter 18. I'll read from verse 1 to 8. Then he spoke a parable to them that men always ought to pray and not lose heart, saying, there was in a certain city a judge who did not fear God nor regard men. Now there was a widow in that city, and she came to him, saying, Get justice for me from my adversary. And he would not for a while. But afterward he said within himself, Though I do not fear God nor regard man, yet because this widow troubles me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me. Then the Lord said, Hear what the unjust judge said. And shall God not avenge his own elect, who cry out day and night to him? Though he bears long with them, I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, will he really find faith on the earth? So find faith, have faith. That's my reading today. I'll do some more videos and I'll explain this applied to, apply the words to my own personal situation. My name is Olurotimi Osha. I will keep you posted. Thank you.